I'll call this meeting of the Village of Weston Plan Commission to order. Roll call.
White,
Here.
Cornell.
Here.
Apparently Conan did call, commented he wasn't gonna be here, so he's excused. I just found out. Durant,
Here.
Jordan,
Here.
Marshall. Here. And Mumford.
Here.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, point of order, one of the alternates will be attending, Husheng Zagami, in Steve Cronin's absence.
Tommy is here. Okay.
Hello, can I just verify that everyone can hear me? This is Roxanne Luchin from NTC.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Sam from NTC, resident.
Okay. Thank you.
John.
Item 3, approve the minutes from the August 9th, 2021 joint PC and ETC meeting. Diane, no? Second. Jordan. On the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? So carried. Next is public hearings. If the public wishes to speak at a hearing, please fill out the public comment form, which some of you have done already. I will try my best to read the names. If your spelling on your name is a little bit hard for me to read, please excuse my errors. And if you kind of like recognize your name, raise your hand. I'll try to get that for you. And we have it had registered with Clerk Parker prior to starting running. And Nate, do we have anybody? Do we have anybody on social media?
We do have a number of some people, but no one with their hands raised, right?
Okay. Okay, one other comment, if any of the members of the Plan Commission have had any ex parte communication on any items concerning any of the hearings, please let us know and we'll make the decision whether you should recuse yourself from the discussion. And secondly, if you've had any ex parte communication concerning anything on the hearings, please let us know and we'll likewise go on that. Anyone have any comments? Hearing none. Going to item number 4, project number 2021-0269. Daniel and Lori Arts requesting a rezone of 7101 East Street from RR Rural Residential 5 acres zoning district to AR agricultural and the residential zoning district. We'll open the public hearing. Presentation by staff.
Sure, so the request is for a rezone of 3 acres that are being merged into 2, so just.
Can you identify yourself, please, for the record?
Sure, Emily Wheaton, Assistant Planner for the Village of Weston.
Thank you, continue.
So this request revolves around 3 acres, the Arts family looking to merge that third parcel into the existing 2. And so we need to do some rezones because the village doesn't allow split zoned parcels in the village, so going to AR for the larger parcel on the left, which is agriculture and residential, and RR2 for the parcel on the right. And basically you're taking 2 columns down. So the green and the gray there would be the RR5, and the AR would be the top gray and the lower white.
That's it?
It.
Okay. Right now is a public comment period. Was there anyone that wishes to speak in favor or against? One at a time, please. You. Step up to the podium, name and address for the record. This is concerning, this is the rezone for a specific piece of property. This is not about the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry if I didn't make that clear. This is a rezone request on personal property. This is not to do with the TID. What do you want to talk about this particular rezone? For or against? Okay, anyone want to speak for or against this rezone? Okay, hearing none. Is the petitioner here? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, four. All four.
For it. Does anybody wish to speak or at least give us a brief Reader's Digest version of what you're doing there?
Oh, I guess,
For podium and name and address for the record, please. Yeah, darn.
I'm Dan Arts. I own the property, the 5-acre property, and my son owns the property next to me on 7101. So we want to purchase the 26 acres from my brother-in-law, whatever that square is, I can't remember if it's 23 or 26. But we just want a straight line from my lot all the way to the end, and then they're just gonna take the rest. But his was zoned agriculture, ours was RR2, and theirs was RR5. So we just wanna be able to make theirs agricultural and ours RR5.
Did
You just have to be closer to it.
you ever put the?
Oh, yeah, there it is. Yep.
So, yeah, it's just, we just wanna make, his was agriculture, ours was RR2, and then their property was RR5. So in order to purchase this property, we have to rezone, so they can be agricultural, will be RR5. Because we'll have 12 acres, they'll have 26 acres.
I have a question for Emily.
Yes, sir.
So you can't have mixed zoning in a single parcel, so part of this is to get uniform zoning?
That is what this is doing. So if you see the dotted line, that's the lower half that's currently AR. That upper left quadrant is currently RR5. So to combine that with the lower there, they're requesting taking it to AR. So that entire left column would become agriculture and residential is the request. On the upper right is currently RR2 and wants to merge with the lower AR. So because that's now would be more than 5 acres, the best use would be to take it to RR5, rural residential 5 zoning district.
So what you're seeing on the screen is the resulting CSN that would be signed.
So in
after.
other words, if we take the action that's
Yes.
desired by the petition, this.
That's what the parcels would look like after the rezone.
Any
The
questions?
zoning map above is the existing.
Question?
Yeah, there we go.
And who else wishes to present? Thank you. Go
I
ahead.
mean, he spoke to the whole parcel.
Okay, you don't have to, if you don't want to. We're actually fairly friendly. Okay. Thank you. Okay. I'm gonna close the public hearing. We have a recommendation from staff.
Staff is, recommends approval.
Thank you. Item F, discussion and recommendation to the village board by plan commission. Discussion?
And you do have your determination sheets in front of you that you will have to go through and answer. I think I put the TID one in front of all the others, so it should be a second staple packet.
Which one are we talking about? I'm sorry, is it in here? Nope. Different one. Okay.
Proposed zoning consistent with comprehensive plan as required by the Wisconsin statutes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, this is a rezoning further the purpose of the intent of this chapter.
Yes.
Yes. Zoning address any of the following that are not properly addressed. Officially running that. One, mistake was made in mapping of the official running map. And it's an area that's developed in a manner that purpose different from that of which it was mapped. If this reason is cited, it must be.
Gary, can you talk into the mic?
Louder.
Speak up.
Are there mics up there? Oh, okay.
You want this one?
No.
Yes, do you want to?
I would say it would be number 3. Growth patterns and rates have changed, thereby creating the need for rezoning. Number 3.
Yes. Yes. And item 4?
Item 4, does the proposed zoning district maintain the desired consistency of the land use intensities and the land use impacts as related to the environs of the subject property?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I make a motion to approve. Planning Commission recommends rezone request and forwards the recommendation on the village board 9/20/21 meeting agenda.
By Gary Garrett, second by O'Neill. On the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? So carried. Additional use request, item number 5. Project number 2021-0270, Seth Lurch, requesting a conditional use permit to allow a residential business at his property at 7209 Ross Avenue within the single-family single-family residential large lot zoning district. Open the public hearing, presentation by staff.
All right, so Seth Lurch is looking to operate a residential business out of an attached garage on his property. Such a use requires a conditional use within the village. His residential business revolves around a part-time business fixing classic cars. It would only be 1 to 2 vehicles worked on at a time, or kept on the property at a time, and they would all be kept inside. There'd be no external storage. All work would be outside. Hours of operation would be 4 to 8 in the evening of weekdays, and then 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on weekdays, or weekends, I'm sorry. Obviously, it's part-time, so he might not work all those hours. He could have a Saturday off and wish to work. It's a little flexible there. It's not a permanent business he's looking to. If this kicks off, he discussed finding a more larger location elsewhere in the future.
Anything else by staff?
And Jen, just to correct myself, it's all internal, so all work is done in the garage, all storage in the garage. There should be no outdoor visual aspect to it.
I thought it recommended 1 vehicle outside.
I believe that's one of the performance standards for the residential businesses, that they can keep a vehicle incidental to that use, but for the applicant's purpose, they're anticipating keeping everything inside. Yes, performance standard number 5 is 1 licensed car.
Anything else?
That's my presentation.
Okay, thank you. I think we have 2 people that wish to comment on this particular issue. One is Milton Pike, is that correct? And would you like me to just read it, or you want to stand up and?
I'll stand up there.
Pardon?
I'll stand up there for a minute.
Name and address for the record, please.
Milton Pike, 7206 Christensen. His land butts right up to ours. And it turned around and that's all swampland. When I built out there 22 years ago, I pumped water out, and the person that lived there then, I was flooding his basement. Randy Christensen put a ditch through there to let the water get away. And it goes out the ditch, then it runs uphill so it can go downhill, which makes no sense, but that's the way the culvert's laid out. But there's standing water. I've been pumping water all fall or all summer, and it's still wet in that woods. And that's just swampland. The guy that built on the corner, he overhauled over 100 yards of sand in there to build on top of it. So that's why I'm opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commission members, do you have any questions for Mr. Pike?
Is it an existing building?
It's an existing building,
Pardon me?
they're not building anything new.
They're utilizing the existing garage.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Mumford?
What is the process for disposal of chemicals or oil?
It would be in any manner that you would as a residential use, unless you wish to add a condition to the permit of how he disposes of items, but we don't have anything unless Public Works can clarify, anything on this use, or even for like, the larger commercial indoor repair auto shops.
I got one other thing to say, that there's blue rock down below us, so the water don't have a chance to escape. We all have wells. I got a real shallow well, and I'm sitting on top of an aquifer. Everybody else out in that neighborhood's got wells too.
Is Mr. Lurch here?
He travels for work, so I don't believe he was going to make it. Nope.
I had a question. Is there a plan, you plan on doing any painting there? That's what he used to get complaints about is odors from painting.
From what I have from him, it's just repair.
I think we have one more person. I think it's Tom.
You don't have to go to the last one, that's fine.
Name and address for the record, please, sir.
Tom Woody, I live at 7106 Kitty Corner to the property in question. And I have more questions than anything. Concerned what Milt was talking about, shallow water out there, sandy water, chemical runoffs. And is there any provisions made for, I mean, when you work on the bodies of cars and that stuff, you're gonna have some chemicals, and if he's gonna paint, I couldn't understand if he's gonna paint there or not. What happens, there's always residue from the paint in that. And that was our concern about the water runoff getting into our wells.
Well, unfortunately, Mr. Lurch isn't here to answer those questions.
If that is a concern that Plan Commission has, you can certainly add it as a condition that no painting were to take place as part of the permit. If that is, and you have any other conditions you wish to add in regards to disposal or whatnot, it's definitely in your wheelhouse.
So this is, as far as I understand it, he's gonna work on cars. To me, defining work means put paint. I would assume he's not gonna be dumping waste oil in his backyard, which would be a really big problem. So I think those are the issues that I think some of these two people are concerned about is contamination of their well water, which is probably the biggest issue that they're worried about. It's unfortunate that he's not here to answer those questions.
Which is absolutely a valid concern with the water. Just to kind of throw out a side comment, you know, he's doing this commercially, but someone doing this as a hobby, there's no regulation. You know, we wouldn't be catching someone who might be fixing up classic cars as a side hobby. My father-in-law does that. So just throwing that out there. But certainly, again, you know, that's why we do conditional uses. You can add these, it's for review, extra review from Plan Commission. You can add conditions.
One other question, just, I've never been to one of these meetings before. Supposing this gentleman and his family decide to move, does that rezoning, if it goes through, stays with that property, or does it go back to single family?
This is actually a conditional use permit, not a zoning change.
Okay.
So the conditional use permit goes with the person that applies for the permit, not the property.
For this one, yes.
So if he sells the property, somebody else comes in, the conditional use permit is null and void. In other words, someone can't jump into it again without reapplying. That's my understanding.
like I said, I've never been to one of these meetings, before, so ask them some good questions.
Oh, you've been lucky, you don't have to come to.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I think I referred to you as Tom. Tom?
Yes.
Any other questions for Tom? Anyone else wishes to comment on this particular issue? This is conditional use permit. Yes, sir. Step forward, name and address for record, please.
My name's Les Sinotsky. I live at 8307 Callan Avenue. I didn't realize what these two guys were discussing, but would the committee consider a 2-year with a sunset clause after 2 years, then review the conditional use permits with the input from the neighbors? I would suggest.
It's certainly something Plan Commission can consider, adding a timeline that the permit expires or, you know,
So this.
I would recommend expire. Also, just to throw something out, Plan Commission just needs to make a decision within 60 days of the public hearing, so you can certainly send this back to Mr. Lurch and ask for further clarification on questions and make a decision next month.
Okay, thank you. You can see we have some questions, and neighbors have questions too. So, and you heard Emily state that we can place conditions on this in addition to the ones that we have seen already. So, anybody else wishes to make a comment for or against?
Oh, did you repeat that? Was that a question?
Just,
Oh, okay.
just that we were looking at just, anyone else wish to make a comment for or against? Anyone else for or against? Okay, thank you. I close the public hearing. Recommendation from staff?
Staff recommends approval contingent on whatever conditions Plan Commission wishes to add.
Thank you.
There is a draft, located in your draft conditional use permit located in your packet.
Packet.
It's on page 32.
Not in the paper copy, unfortunately.
Sorry.
Conditional use permit, is it not? That would be on page 32.
The conditions will be in your determination.
Correct. Would it-
So the second page, sorry, third or fourth page of your determination sheet should have Plan Commission action options approved, and then there's the conditions listed there, which is currently what's attached to the draft that Chairman White has, and you're welcome to add anything if you wish.
Okay, we have 11 conditions on this particular document.
It would be 6. Oh, you're looking at the performance standards.
I'm sorry. Okay, is this on the, one, two, third, starts on the third page and continues on the back?
Yep.
Anyone have any discussion, points, comments?
Is it our turn?
Yes, it is, sir.
We should make a motion to defer and see if we can get the applicant to come in to answer some of these questions.
Okay, is that your motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to defer till next month.
I'll second.
We have a motion to defer by Garrett, and a second by Muslim to defer till we can get the applicant in to answer some of these questions.
What specific questions would you like?
The questions are where he would be, he's got contracted, where he's disposing of any of his hazardous or oils or chemicals. If he's gonna be painting, what type of paint it is, a water-based paint, or what kind of paint it is. How he's disposing of any thinners or.
Will there be any kind of abrasive blasting?
What kind of blasting, I'm sorry?
Abrasive blasting. Would that be done?
We have a motion and a second, and I think we had enough questions for you.
Got the three.
Okay. Anything else on the question? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? So this will be deferred until
Gary's motion said next month is what I
next month.
And Emily, we would notify them, kind of let them know that.
correct, I'll be in touch with him. I will let him know that you guys would like to, like, you know, see if we can even at least get him on Zoom. He travels to work. I'll let him know it's highly recommended, highly encouraged.
I thought you were jumping up there. Right, item 6,
Did we actually vote?
yes,
Okay, so it's,
we did vote.
I just heard motions, I didn't hear how, okay, curious.
Okay, item 6, project number 20210-0285, Zhuo Yang requesting a conditional use permit to allow a tourist rooming house at a property he owns addressed as 1417 Foothill Avenue within the 2F, two-family residential zoning district. Open the public hearing. Presentation by staff.
All right, so 1417 Foothill Ave is a current duplex in the village. The applicant is proposing utilizing it as a tourist rooming house, both sides. Tourist rooming house is colloquially also known as Airbnb or a Verbo. They would utilize it as a furnished short-term housing for local stays. Their operation plan stated it won't be used for illegal use, large party gatherings, and they'll ensure noise ordinances won't disturb neighbors. The units will be cleaned after each rental, and all renters would have 24-hour communication with the applicant, so the owners of the building. I do want to point out in your packet, we received an email, I believe it was last week, of a neighbor a couple doors down, who just had some questions, some concerns and questions on traffic, as well as just how the property will be monitored, how will any issues be handled. And that is in your packet, unless you would rather me read that into the minutes for you. That's.
Can you tell me which page on the packet it is?
54.
54, thank you.
It's up on the screen if you can have really good vision.
Since this is already part of the agenda in the,
Yeah, it was
It's
already in
already
the packet.
you don't have to read that. Although I'm sure the commission did read it. Okay, public comment period. Anyone wishes to speak in favor or against? Other than the email that we received. And that's the only one?
That's all we received.
Anyone on social media? No? Anyone wishes to speak in favor or against? Anyone wishing to speak in favor or against? Just for the record, please.
My name is Tina Prince and I live at 5702 Mary Lane in Weston, and I was just wanting to know, is he renting this out like as a Airbnb?
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Short-term rentals.
So then it could get loud.
It has the potential.
So could any long-term rental, any single-family home can get loud as well, so.
The plan commission, have any questions? None? Thank you. Any other comments for or against? I know I asked 3 times. You waited till the last time to speak, so. Anybody else?
So one thing I do want to point out, I don't know if it's in your packet or not, but in 2017, the state legislature adopted Act 67, which limited basically our discretion on a lot of these cases with these short-term rentals. So there are some things that you have to look at when you are dealing with this. You can't just do it on substantial evidence like this might get loud. So, and this all stems, a lot of it has to do with probably more so from northern Wisconsin, but we ended up having to make some changes to the zoning code after we first put this into our code in 2015, just because of this legislation that came out. So we are limited on how much we can regulate this type of.
My understanding is you can't make a decision based upon speculation.
Correct.
Or supposition that this is gonna happen or that's gonna happen.
This is also predicated, just refresh me, the definition of short-term rental is 7 days or less, is that correct?
There's no good definition for short-term rental. Ours in the code is 7 days or less for tourist rooming house, yes.
So if you started renting this out, for example, on a monthly basis,
That starts getting into long-term rental, and I would say falls outside of tourist and back into just regular someone renting an apartment, for any person who needs it.
We currently do not have a rental program where we're regulating rentals. We just handle them just like we would a single family. There was issues there.
We're still under the public comment period session. Any other comments from the public? Commission members? Okay, anything on social media? Okay, hearing and seeing no further public comment. I'll close the public hearing. Recommendation from staff.
Staff recommends approval.
Item F, discussion and action by planning commission.
So how many bedrooms are there and how many parking places are there?
There's 2 bedrooms in each unit, so there's 4 bedrooms total. There's a garage stall for each, as well as 2 spaces in front of each garage stall.
So the party owns both sides of this duplex?
Correct. There is a floor plan up on the screen. It's a bi-level, so it's identical on each floor.
Upper, lower.
Thank you. And again, the conditions are in your determination packet, so you can see what staff is recommending adding for conditions. Basically, zoning permit, occupancy inspection. If, occupancy is limited to a certain number, they need to get county and state licenses. And plan commission can add any others that they deem necessary for approval.
Okay. Go for a determination first, I imagine.
Pardon?
We should go for a determination.
Yes, that's correct. I'll take care of this one since you did the first one. Okay. This is a determination. Is the proposed conditional use is consistent with the comprehensive plan? This chapter in all of the plans, programs, and ordinances adopted by the village.
Yes.
The proposed conditional use in its proposed location and as depicted on the required site plan will not result in a substantial or undue adverse impact on nearby property, the character of the neighborhood, environment, traffic factors, parking, public improvements, public property or rights of way, or other matters affecting the public health, safety, or general welfare, either as they now exist or as they may in the future be developed. As a result of the implementation of the provisions of this chapter, the comprehensive plan or all other plans, programs, and ordinances adopted by the village.
Yes.
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 Okay. 3, does the proposed conditional use will maintain the desired consistency of land uses, land use intensities, and land use impacts as related to the environs of the subject property?
Yes.
Yes. 4, is the proposed conditional use located in an area that will be adequately served by and will not impose an undue burden on any of the improvements, facilities, utilities, or services provided by public agencies serving the subject property?
Yes.
Yes. 5, do the potential public benefits of the proposed conditional use outweigh potential adverse impacts on the proposed conditional use after taking into consideration the applicant's proposal and any requirements recommended by the applicant to ameliorate such impact?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So we have yes to all 5. Any other discussion? The chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit number 20210285, allowing a tourist rooming house use at 1415/1417 Foothill Avenue, subject to the conditions 1 through 7 listed on the packet.
We have a motion by Mr. Mofer. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Garrett. On the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? So carried. Okay, next item. I would assume most of you are here for this. Sorry, we had to go through this first. The district number 2 project plan amendment. Number 7, proposed project plan amendments to tax income rental district number 2. I'll open the hearing. We have a presentation by MD Ropers.
And one moment, I think Keith is gonna lead off on that.
Okay, excuse me.
So is this on?
Yes.
Up here. I better not take it off, I'll break it. All right, I hope it's a little more comfortable in here. Air conditioning has been turned down.
Who's supposed to go on?
All right, I just wanted to start off tonight just to point out what discussion is going to be taking place in the presentation now, of course, is on tax increment district number 2 along Schofield Avenue, extending basically from the village boundary on the west near the Walgreens, Normandy Street, and to Birch Street. Now the TID does actually have some capability to support infrastructure somewhat outside of its boundaries, but those are things will be talked about a little bit here in Mark's presentation. At our last plan commission meeting, we had some considerable discussion about the plan amendment. And a lot of that focused on what are we actually approving through this process tonight. And you're gonna hear it again, but I know in this memo to the plan commission emphasized that we had taken the input of the plan commission and made modifications to this plan that reduced the overall amount of cost that might be deemed supported by the TIF at this point. Reality is though that any projects that get approved going forward have to come before the board, and they will be dependent on the actual performance of the TID at any point in time. So it's not approving anything to go forward immediately. It's certainly evaluating what might be possible to do, and if projects are not named in this plan, they can't be undertaken without another amendment to the plan. So I guess just wanted to start off with that overall comment. I don't know if, I know that perhaps we did not present that as explicitly or as clearly to the plan commission last time, but I hope that with the information that was provided ahead of time and what's going to be provided tonight does fill in any blanks that anybody may have had either going in the last meeting or after it concluded. So anyway, I guess I will turn it over to Mark unless any members of the plan commission have any questions for me to start with. So I guess I will turn it over to Mark Roffers, who we relied on to keep us in line with state law in terms of the compliance with tax increment finance law in terms of these plans. So, Mark?
Thank you, Keith. I do have a presentation here to talk about TID. I realize that some of you may be close to experts yourselves. Others of you, the letters TID didn't mean much to you until maybe a few days ago. My name is Mark Roffers. I've been working with the village on various planning and zoning related issues for about 7 or 8 years now. And I do this type of work elsewhere in the state under various consulting agreements. So I'm going to talk a little bit of background for those of you who don't have a lot of experience with TID before launching into what is being proposed for tax incremental district number 2. So first of all, what is tax incremental financing just in general, or TIF, the F being the financing part in this case? It's a way for villages to fund public infrastructure and private development incentives in areas that have been specifically designated for economic development within village plans. The funding for doing those types of things comes from additional taxes that are generated by the development projects within that tax incremental district. That's the tax increment. It's not the funding for providing incentives or doing street projects or whatever in a TID doesn't come from increased taxes on owners, property owners either inside or outside of the tax incremental district. That's, the district is the TID, the financing or the level of support, the money changing hands is the TIF. Sometimes the village through a tax incremental district first has to borrow money to fund the infrastructure and incentives, because remember, what we're doing is relying on the future property taxes generated by new development to fund the TID. So sometimes you have to borrow first and then have the future property tax increases pay back the principal and interest on the borrowing. When a TID's going for a while, like tax incremental district number 2 has been, there's often a cash balance that can be leaned on to help fund an incentive or a particular infrastructure project, particularly smaller ones that don't require borrowing. The village has had 2 tax incremental districts in place. TID number 1 was created, I believe, in 1998. TID number 2, which is the subject of tonight's meeting, was created in 2004 and has been in existence over the area that Keith mentioned that I'm going to show for the past 16, 17 years. And both TIDs are doing pretty well for the village, and they've created some pretty important things, including the business and technology park on the east side, the medical center campus, other development and redevelopment projects that have added to the tax base within the villages. This is a graphic model of what TIF is. So you have a chart here, the taxes generated on the y-axis or the up-down axis in the life of the 5th district or TID. So what happens when a TID is created is that you have a certain amount of tax base in that TID. The taxes from that tax base continue to go to the different taxing jurisdictions, the village, the county, the technical college, and the school district. What the TID gets and what can be used to fund projects within the TID is the incremental taxes, the amount that's being generated by new development and by redevelopment occurring within that TID. And that supports the TID and the expenses, whether they're incentives for developers or new roads or utilities or other things to make the TID work and to achieve its goals. And then at the end of the life of the TID, and in the case of TID number 2, the projected end is about 2031. It could be a little sooner depending on how many projects get undertaken here. All that additional revenue goes to the various taxing jurisdictions. So the idea is they're made whole and then some, but they have to wait a little bit of time to make that happen. Some of the benefits of tax incremental districts, increasing property values for the community, not just within the area, but with the entire community. They're intended to, and their original goal was to spur redevelopment. In other words, reusing existing buildings or developing new buildings where current buildings may have outlived their useful purpose in order to improve the community, provide more places to shop, eat, play, work, and live, including enhancing business opportunities for local folks that, want to get a start in business, but, often are not capital rich to make that happen. And, then relatedly, especially when we're dealing with redevelopment areas where we have existing buildings to clear, sometimes contaminated soil, older infrastructure to fix up, it helps property owners fill gaps where the redevelopment would otherwise be too costly. And they would say, forget it, we're just going to go to this cornfield over here or to this other community instead of redevelop this site. And that's become only more pronounced in the last year or two when we've faced sort of unprecedented cost increases in materials, lumber, steel, other things to make building go, and the cost and availability of labor. And then the final benefit, I guess, of the tax increment districts is our other sources of funding to support larger infrastructure projects. State and federal funds, as you know, are being debated at the federal level now, but have generally been not increasing to keep pace with inflation. So it has provided for many communities a useful tool to kind of fill in those gaps. So it's those property taxes that are being generated by the new development, the TID, that's helping fund the improvements that benefit the TID and the entire community as they work their way through it and use the businesses and so forth in the TID. Okay, so what is a TID project plan? We're here to talk about an amendment to the Tax Incremental District 2 project plan. It's a guiding tool for potential future village project activities and expenditures in the TID. Its contents are dictated by state statutes. They're very dense, sometimes unwieldy. It often leads to a project plan where you might look at this and scratch your head and say, why did they include that? And the short answer to a lot of that is because the state statute says we have to. And sometimes it says we have to because there have been issues and instances of the past use of TIDs in the state that haven't gone quite right. And so they've identified things and plugged gaps and improved the statute to make it work a little better. It all, however, ends up being a fairly significant and thick document. One of the things that Keith mentioned and is correct is that no expenditure in a tax incremental district can occur unless the project is specifically listed in the project plan. So that what that creates is an incentive or a directive to say, let's list every potential project that we think we might conceivably undertake in this TID going forward. And that's what we've tried to do with some local restraint within the TID project plan is envisioned. What might be possible between now and the end of the spending period in TID and the TID. I've competed with a lot of noises in the past, but never sorting bowling pins.
Different door and then close this door?
We have to have at least one door open, Valerie.
We can open like this door?
I'm just fine, Valerie. I just was trying to be funny.
Work on that part.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. The total, so the other thing that is important to note is that the total spending that's authorized in the TID is really a cap, or should be a cap, for how much could potentially be spent in that TID. So that's important too. So that's a kind of a counterbalance. Hey, we want to list all these projects A through Z, but we know we can't spend more than the TID authorizes. The Plan Commission had quite a discussion on that at our last meeting. There had changes to that effect, or in that category as we move forward with tonight's meeting. So that's in general what tax incremental district is. Many municipalities have them. Most municipalities of Weston size do incentivize redevelopment and to make new development happen. The draft of the amended project plan was in the Plan Commission packet and has been available online for the last week or so. What does it do? Well, first of all, I'll talk about where the TID is. This is been unchanged for the past 7 years. So my guess is that some of you at least know that TID 2 even existed, of course, the last few days, but it has. And it's extended from, as was mentioned on the west side, Walgreens and Business 51. Basically followed the Weston Schofield Avenue corridor pretty closely. It does have some parcels that are a little bit off of the road as you get to cross streets like Alderson. But includes the other areas and developments that you see listed on the map. On the east end, it goes out to Quick Trip and the Oriental Market, and that's the end of the TID. There's two proposed reductions from the TID. They're on the east edge and near the southeast corner of Cherry and Schofield Avenue. The reason those are being proposed for reduction is that the same owner also owns land to the immediate south. And the way that TID law is created, you can't split parcels half in and half out, and we'd expect those parcels to be consolidated in the future with redevelopment. So the village is in a position right now where it can subtract areas from TIDs, but cannot add areas. So we couldn't add the rest of those parcels, but we could delete them from the TID, and that is the proposal. Why are we talking about amending the TID now after 17 years? Well, the first reason is to kind of recalibrate it or fix it to meet the changing needs in the 2020s versus the 2000s. You know, so many things have changed since the 2000s. How we shop, how we live, how we work have all changed dramatically. In some cases, very dramatically with the advent of Amazon and things like that. And it's affected what's possible and practical within the TID. And you see that when you look at vacancies and properties for sale in TID 2 and beyond within the village. Another reason to propose to amend the TID relatedly is to increase commercial activity and jobs there, in part by increasing the residential base. More local customers means more business, more people to work in local businesses, both inside and outside of the TID, including in the business and technology park. The village is proposing to amend the TID plan to identify potential funding to advance mixed use and business redevelopment and some infrastructure that might support it, with the emphasis on development support. And those potential redevelopment projects have been identified in the Schofield Avenue corridor plan, which the village commissioned and had adopted earlier this year. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we move here tonight. If you're a landowner or a business owner within TID 2 and interested, revitalized TID 2 through this project plan amendment could help with closing financing gaps for redevelopment, for expansion of projects, and for new development. Again, to try to close those gaps where possible. Also could assist with site preparation, including demolition, remediation, and relocation of businesses and existing tenants when necessary as part of redevelopment projects. The TID could also help with land acquisition and writing down the cost of land. The price of a particular parcel of land can be a hurdle, as can assembling, in many cases, very small parcels that were created many, many, many years ago for housing into one viable site for redevelopment. It could be used to help meet particular standards for building design or landscaping or other things that the village has that go above the minimum ordinance requirement, and even for reimbursing for development fees and expenses and other factors. So that's the potential benefit for an owner within TID 2. And TID 2 also can assist with supporting infrastructure to make sure that people can continue to get to and from businesses safely for the next 10, 20 years. And when you flush the toilet, it goes to the right spot, and when you drink the water, it tastes good, and so forth. What's not going on with this amendment? First off, there's no rezoning of any lands unless the landowners are interested, or the landowners are interested in selling to developers or other people who are interested in rezoning land. Otherwise, you're welcome to make development proposals under current zoning, regardless of whether you're in a TID or not. There's no requirement to redevelop or sell land in the TID. That existing land use can continue indefinitely. And as Keith mentioned, there's no immediate spending being proposed on land acquisition, on infrastructure, on development incentives, on anything else within TID 2. As I mentioned earlier, TID 2, having something listed in the project plan just makes it possible. We have to bring, Keith, others would have to bring a project forward, whether it was a development incentive for a particular redevelopment project or an infrastructure project, that would have to be individual, those would have to be individually approved by the village board before they could actually happen. And really, they'd have to pass the sniff test. The TID has to be able to afford it. If within the remaining life of the tax incremental district, that next 10 years, the TID can't pay back the initial investment, the additional taxes can't pay back the investment, the incentive or the project can't happen. So as a result, I think it's pretty clear that not every expenditure that's listed in the TID project plan amendment will actually happen. It's a plan, again, that shows the outer limits of what could potentially happen. Getting to the specifics, and I'm happy to get into the nitty-gritty of the project plan in response to questions, but for the purposes of my presentation here, what's in the project plan, I mentioned the small reduction in the boundary to keep 2 potential redevelopment sites, I guess, all out of the TID as opposed to all in. The project plan does suggest that if though there are certain criteria met, that the TID could help fund redevelopment within that TID. Maybe it's a particular business that would, be awesome for the other businesses in the area to have nearby. Maybe it would be some people living there that would support businesses, right across the street. It's laid out in the project plan. We can discuss it later as needed. The TID project plan does include an expanded proposed budget to aid with redevelopment and expansion projects that would not occur, and I have in quotes, but for. That's the whole rule. If someone comes forward with a development proposal or a redevelopment proposal, they have to demonstrate to the satisfaction of the village that the project would not occur but for the incentive being offered. So, if they put forward a concept that says, hey, this is all working great, but to knock down this existing building and to improve and clean up the site, it's going to cost me another $100,000. That's not in my budget. I can't really make that up. I go elsewhere otherwise, or not do my project at all. That's the kind of idea, that the development would not occur but for that additional incentive being provided by the village. Particularly in response to our extended discussion at the Plan Commission, the TID 2 project plan does include a modest list of potential infrastructure projects that could be undertaken over the next 10 years with a particular focus over the next 5 years. Improve transportation safety and access. Believe it or not, over the next 5 to 10 years, the Schofield Avenue will need to be resurfaced. This project plan could help fund that. Making sure that utility services are reliable and providing quality drinking water and other things with it. And some enhancements, like some minor aesthetic enhancements, like street trees and other things to enhance the place as both a business environment and an environment where people may want to live. As we think about the area of tax incremental District 2 in light of our kind of really changing commercial market, I think, and we've had this discussion with the Schofield Avenue plan, it's probably unrealistic to expect that the full extent of Schofield Avenue will be developable with business purposes. So then the question is, what else could develop? And we also know that within Weston and region and statewide, we have a housing shortage, and we also have a worker shortage. And so to try to address those through mixed use redevelopment projects that could include some housing was viewed as important within the confines of the Schofield plan that I mentioned earlier and the TID project plan. Specifically, the potential budget for redevelopment incentives would be expanded by, under the proposed amendment, $2.75 million in order to advance redevelopment per the Schofield plan. For that potential investment, the village anticipates redevelopment projects over the next 10 years that would have over 30 million in assessed value on properties that have about 6 million in value today. That's additional tax revenue that would, be available for all taxing jurisdictions over at the end of the period. And that type of redevelopment doesn't happen oftentimes by itself, particularly when you look at and think about the types of projects I'm going to be mentioning. The but-for test and the ability for village to plug gaps in financing could really help push some of these projects over the top and make some of these things that are indicated in village plans possible. More places to shop, more places to eat, more places to work, additional people to fill jobs and to patronize businesses. So this is not a presentation on the Schofield Avenue corridor plan. Some of you may have been here back in May when we did present that plan just before it was adopted. But that plan does identify some conceptual redevelopment opportunities for the TID2 area. They're labeled here on the map with different letters. As I mentioned at that meeting, these are highly conceptual, suggesting different locations for different types of buildings and uses within different parts of the TID where, we might have vacant property, we might have a collection of smaller houses or other things that don't necessarily fit with the modern vision for Schofield Avenue. And this provides a bit of a blueprint or a framework. So the idea would be with a amended TID project plan, someone in area H or area C could come forward with a concept. May look a lot like this, it may look substantially different, but a concept that would meet the sniff test, the but-for sniff test, and check a lot of other boxes, and then be potentially available for a piece of, not all of, but a piece of that added incentive budget. The TID, as I mentioned earlier, the TID project plan does have some potential supporting infrastructure projects listed in it. Again, these are the outer boundaries of things that might be undertaken by the TID. The biggest dollar amount project is also the only first priority infrastructure project. That's repaving Schofield Avenue for its full length through the TID. There are other lower priority projects. They're listed on the screen. I'm happy to walk through any of them. They focus on utilities, getting people safely along and across Schofield Avenue, whether they're in their car or on a bike or walking, and providing infrastructure to the TID and getting people to it, even from points that are not exactly within, but within 1.5 mile of the TID. There's another first priority project that the TID project plan includes, and this also has been emphasized since the last version the Plan Commission saw, and that's for the village to potentially be a player to step in when land becomes available for sale. But we don't have a private redeveloper yet interested, or the village might need to kind of step in and hold a piece of land for a while until someone else steps forward. So there's a line item for potentially acquiring and preparing land for redevelopment, particularly in areas like Schofield Avenue, where we have a lot of small parcels that were developed many years ago. It's hard to develop and redevelop those. And if a developer comes forward and is kind of stuck and not being able to get one of 4 properties that they need to make it happen, it can be the difference between allowing a redevelopment to happen or not. So sometimes villages come in, step in and acquire properties in advance until a developer does come forward to make it happen. So the TID project plan includes a cash flow analysis to make sure this stuff could actually kind of pay for itself with the additional taxes that would be generated. As I mentioned earlier, we're anticipating over 30 million in added property value through redevelopment projects in the TID over the next 10 years if we can keep this project plan going and reinvigorated. That would result in about 11 million in tax increment, additional taxes from redevelopment. With that projected increment, the project plans suggest that about 8 million in additional expenditures could occur and would still allow the TID to close before its mandated closure date of May 2031. That assumes that all these expenditures are actually made. But as I keep beating the drum, actual expenditures would be tied to actual increment growth. So the village at the end of the period or near the end of the period would be assured that it would have a positive balance at time of closure. I'm going to talk a little bit about next steps and then turn it back to Keith for a couple of comments here. Next steps tonight after Keith speaks is to hear public hearing comments on the TID project plan. The village, in addition to doing the statutory notice, I think notified every property owner within the TID, which goes above and beyond what the statute requires. After the hearing, I can be in a position to respond to comments, and other staff in the room can as well. The commission, if it's prepared after the hearing, could adopt and recommend a project plan via TID project plan via a resolution was in the packet. And then after that, whether it's tonight or at a subsequent meeting, the village board can adopt the plan, and then we have a joint review board, which includes a representative from each of the different taxing jurisdiction that would have to adopt the project plan amendment. If that doesn't happen, the existing project plan just continues on going forward. So with that, I think, Keith, I'm going to call you back up here and I can continue to control the presentation, but if you want to go through the last few slides, that'd be great.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Mark. I guess we certainly are aware that there's a couple of main questions out there among some of the public. And some of these came up at our last meeting. But one is, what is the effect of closing TID number 2 now? Our finance director, Jessica Trollman, had done a quick analysis of this. There's a formula to go through to evaluate the impacts to the levy and the overall village, what equalized value and so forth. And the analysis essentially says that if TID number 2 were closed, we could bring $64,200 back to the village general tax levy, or tax for operation, or I should say for the funds for operation. That would drop our tax rate by an estimated 9 cents per thousand, amounting to about $70 on a $200,000 home. What we do though with TID, it does help to support some of we have to fund, and we are justified in funding the administrative aspects of keeping the TID open. We're entertaining inquiries from developers, and just other, looking at zonings and rezonings, plan proposals, I should say site plan proposals. So all those costs are given an allocation in our budget, and currently among all the different staff that are having some of their wages allocated there, we would have to make up $46,000 of expense. That would then reduce that amount that comes back to help the general fund right now to just under $18,000. We have the opportunity to keep TID 2 open. Village board had talked about this early in the year with the staff and looking at what other possibilities there were to improve or enhance the prospects for redevelopment along the Schofield Avenue corridor. So I guess we go to that slide, Mark. The other side of this is that if we do close it, we would lose the ability for the village to be a player in this redevelopment of Schofield Avenue. Truthfully, one of the true purposes, or one of the original purposes of TID was to enhance redevelopment of properties. And I know this, it's mentioned in our project plan that Schofield Avenue was considered a blighted area in the definitions that are made by the state. That being that land maybe is not in a suitable use right now and should be in a different use, or it is run down and needs to be redeveloped. we would lose that ability to under 2032. The reason for that is, as Mark mentioned, we can't add any territory to any TIDs that we have because TID number 1 is so large and we have more of our assessed and equalized value in our village than actually than state law would permit. We're at something like 20% or 22% overall. And unfortunately, that's kind of the hand we're dealt at this point, and I think we have to move forward. So what that would mean though, if we were to close it, all the infrastructure we would potentially be able to fund through the debt service, or in all the infrastructure that we have in this plan. And we're looking at Schofield Avenue repaving as the main goal because it is something that's gonna need to be done at some point in time. But for instance, in this plan, we have $3.5 million in there, and if that were to be done under a general obligation bond, it would actually result in something in the order of about a 30% per $1,000 increase on the tax levy, and it would end up costing people more throughout the village. So I guess that's just an example of one of the impacts. Maybe in a perfect world, we wouldn't have TID, but as we all know, we don't live in a perfect world, and this is a tool that can be used to mitigate impacts to the general tax levy as well. I guess, next slide then, Mark. Obviously, there is also the other point that's out there and question that doesn't TID actually have a negative impact on village operations? And I think our finance director, Jessica, certainly agrees with this, or agrees that in principle, yes, that's true, that when new development occurs in the TID, the incremental taxes don't go to fund operations. That's the negative. Unfortunately, we had the devaluation in TID 1 that forced us to keep it open longer. Again, the hand we're dealt, we're trying to overcome this. Then if you look at that a little further, those negative impacts actually have some correlation to the type and the extent of the development that might be done. Our TID has not been focused on residential development, I guess, as an example. If there's a lot of residential development, it might come with a lot more police effort that might need to be used to do patrolling and so forth. We have added street mileage, and that does add to our operational burden in order to go and plow streets and maintain them. But on the other side of that, when we add street mileage and spend more money on streets, even though they're empty, we do reflect more general transportation needs. I guess I'm not certainly gonna cover every detail there, and I'm not gonna tell you I've analyzed it all, because I haven't. But these are things in general or in principle that are involved in this. So, I guess the other implication, of course, though, is once you close it, then all the taxes now then go back to the other taxing jurisdictions, the other taxing authorities. So, I guess, just in summary, I guess I wanted to make sure I covered those points, at least to some extent, knowing that those questions are out there. So I guess with that, well, I don't know what's next here on the agenda, Mr. Chairman?
Are you done with the presentation?
I think so. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Well, that's coming up.
I got a question for the fellow that was up before.
Do you want to open the hearing address? We're going to open up the public comment period. I will get to the ones that were read. Did you submit one also?
Yes, I did, but I'd like to have him answer my question.
Sure can. Up to the podium and name and address, please.
My name is John Rondo. I live at 5403 J.M. Place, Weston. My question is, what happened to the last TIF district on the east part of Weston Avenue that went up into smoke?
There is.
You were here for 7 years.
There is still a TIF district on Weston Avenue but I don't, Keith, you wanna?
I think you're speaking about a specific project in TID number 1, correct? The Camp Phillips Center?
The one that went up in smoke a year or two ago,
Yes.
what happened? Nobody.
Too much wetland to
nobody
deal with?
worked into it knowing that was a swamp.
There was too much wetland involved, and yes, permitting was impossible, so this project was scrapped. We received.
Where'd the money go?
There was some money spent with the consultant. We received over $2 million of our ETC relocation deposit back.
Did anybody ever come up with the number that we spent to get to that?
Probably around $750,000 in consulting fees, I'm guessing, my estimate.
I would like to know that number for sure.
I can certainly get you the correct number. I'm just shooting from the hip here at this.
Because I just saw a proposal now to do Weston Avenue Weston Avenue going to 51.
Reconstruction of Weston Avenue from Camp Phillips Road to County Trunk Highway J has now become our number 1 priority project for TID number 1. We are working on design for that project right now. And TID number 1 has the capacity to do that reconstruction.
How much of that is a swamp?
Weston Avenue, it's already used as a street.
I know, but
It's being,
sides of it.
being evaluated, what needs to
Well,
be
we
done.
better do a better evaluation than we did last time.
All right, I appreciate your comment on that, but again, we have to work with a hand we're dealt a bit here. So.
Well, if it's swamp, it's swamp.
Mr. Rondo, is your first name Laverne, is that correct?
No.
Oh, that's you. So you didn't actually fill out one of these, did you?
I filled one out, yes.
They signed it.
Okay.
But I wasn't gonna speak, but since we had the guy here who knew what went on, I'd like to know what happened.
Here it is.
Yeah, I wasn't involved.
Mark wasn't involved.
No, your
Driving.
question is, that should have been addressed to staff, and I hope I answered it. I can get you the number that you
I
asked.
wanna see the number, but this is terrible.
It's not gonna be available right now.
No, I don't want it today.
Okay, so in your written comment, you say you're opposed to, is that correct?
Yes, and I just said I was opposed, I wasn't gonna talk.
Okay. Okay, we got that one covered. We have quite a few written requests to make comment. And I think we might as well stay in the family. And you said you would like to make an oral statement.
I would, yes, please. It's not going to be a long one.
Okay.
My name is Laverne Rondo. I live at 3403 JM Place, and as a resident and taxpayer, I guess I feel that the Weston or village should use our taxpayer money wisely. And as you say, you really don't know what the extended costs are going to be once this amendment is passed, the related expenditures. You have absolutely no idea. And in the past, I'm just using past projects as an example. Schofield Avenue years ago cost a small fortune to redo, and that was supposed to be to beautify Schofield Avenue. What happened with that? We had 4 obelisks in a row, I don't know how many times. Why did we need that? Why did we need some of those things that were done? And you brought in someone from the outside that charged us $1 million to do that. It was a ridiculous amount. So, looking at past things, I don't know that I know as taxpayers, we want new businesses in the area and we want things to be beautiful, but right now we have medians that look like crap because they're not taken care of. So if we're going to do some of these projects, I think you need to use that money a little bit more wisely. We didn't have any input in the new municipal center that's being built for $16 million plus, and we still have no idea what the tax, what's going to have to be paid as far as debt on that premium. So there are things that are really up in the air as far as costs, and I'm not so sure that I trust the village to use that money wisely. You want to rename Schofield Avenue. Why? I have no idea. What is the reason behind that, and what is that going to cost? I mean, you guys have to answer some of these things before we trust that you're going to use these funds wisely. So for that reason, I am not in approval of this. I'm opposed to it. I'd like to know more about what is going to be happening, and I don't think you can answer that exactly. So it's, that is my reason for being opposed, because I have a lot of questions in relation to other things that have gone on and future projects that you want to do that, to me, those questions aren't answered yet. So there's a lot of up in the air expenses, I guess, so that's my reason for being opposed to this. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm gonna ask the commission members, if there's any questions you have of anyone that comes up and speaks, please raise your hand and ask the question. Okay. Sorry, I didn't let you know through Shan, Jesse? Harpy?
Harpy, yep.
The address for the record, please.
Shanty's Tarpey, 4405 Leduc Street in Weston. And I guess Laverne kind of said exactly what I was going to say. I am also opposed to amending TID number 2 for the very same reason she is. There's a very big lack of trust. There's a lot of lack of transparency with what that money will go for. It appears to me from, and mind you, I took a crash course in what a TID is on my own, but reading through the proposal, it appeared to me that it's kind of a giant slush fund that you guys have worded so nicely that you can do what you want, whenever you want, to some degree. Because there's wording on some of the pages that say, well, this can change and we can move this over here and we can move this over here. That's all at our discretion. There is a huge lack of trust. So I'm opposed to amending that TID, and what I would really like to see the board do is enact a plan to close TID number 1 as soon as possible. We have been patient for 25 years waiting for this TID to close. And in my opinion, the $6 million annual tax revenue needs to go to support things like schools and county operations and police and fire services. And just perhaps closing that TID and putting that money back into the tax levy would take care and offset the cost of that new municipal center that we still don't know how much it's going to cost.
I have a question. TID 1 is this is TID 2 we're talking.
I know, I'm asking you to close TID 1.
Yes,
Okay.
Before you do anything with TID 2.
yes,
So we don't have another TID that never dies.
yes,
Mr. Donna, do you have any comments about that?
thank you.
TID 1? Can we close it earlier?
No, we have outstanding debt yet. I don't know what the debt repayment right now would be projected, but it's several years out, I think, isn't it?
Would that be in
If we
the
didn't take
annual
on-
report? Because I have a copy of it right here if you wanted to see it.
You would have to get a,
It's in the financial statements. You got a copy of those off the internet?
Yeah, finding anything on the website is difficult.
Thank you. Jesse Wellhofer, is that correct?
Wellhafer.
Pardon?
Wellhafer.
Pardon me.
I'm sorry.
Step forward in your name and address for the record, please.
All right. Jesse Wellhafer. I live at 5407 Shell Drive in Weston. So I own a couple businesses and also 18 rentals. First off, I'm grateful for the work our public officials do in this planning. So thank you guys for that. It doesn't look easy. After a lot of my travels around the world, I've recently decided to look at things for myself around here. I was hoping to find a system of people who are held to a high fiduciary standard, making decisions based on a set of principles, standards, and rules which have been designed to bring maximum result in the best interest of the people. I do not think I found that. In my short time looking under the hood, I have seen 3 things going on. The first thing I found is that someone approved the use of 20 acres of prime real estate to build a new government building right on Camp Phillips Road. I would hope that our hard-earned money is spent to increase the money this community can make through jobs, etc. But instead, we are literally throwing away 20 acres of land and spending $16 million of taxpayer money to build a government building. Instead of this land being used for a business that would make money and pay taxes, it will be used for something that will demand more money from the people to support it. The empty office space will be filled with the hiring of new government employees that we, as the taxpayers, will need to support. This will be a huge drain, not a benefit to our community. Number two, I learned that 23 years ago or something, the leaders did a great thing and opened TID 1 district to spend money on infrastructure along with the highway that has become our little industrial area. This was a huge success. That should be exciting because the land and the taxes the businesses pay should come back to us. But unfortunately, as people have noted, that TID has not been closed. And instead, people are looking, or the committee is looking to extend that TID and borrow more money to extend it as opposed to closing it and finishing that off. And then number three, I recently attended the planning meeting which created and proposed the spending plan we are here for today. What I saw in that meeting was this: a subgroup of people decided to hire a third-party agency to come up with a way to spend $12 million or so. It was clear from the meeting that next to no one on the committee actually saw the value on the spending the plan laid out. There was a lot of confusion and frustration in that meeting. In the end, the committee approved moving forward to public hearing with the hopes that they could figure out after the approval of how to actually spend the money. So this leads me to my conclusion and my ask. From what I have seen, this committee does not have a tried and true method of fiduciary procedures in place when they decide how to spend our money. So I'm asking that this committee and our elected officials treat every dollar of our money spent as if it were their own and they needed a return on investment. I ask that this committee puts together a process in which each decision shows a clear return on investment for every dollar spent. I ask that this committee shows everyone here what their fiduciary standards and procedures are when approving the spending of the money. I ask that the people of this committee act on behalf of the people and for the people. And as for the spending of the $12 million in TID 2, I ask that we not allow the spending of the money until the committee can show how the money spent will bring a return on investment, as well as the procedures they went through to prove that. I just don't want this TID to be another blank check for another government building or free money for the good old boys club. Thank you, guys.
Any questions? Cindy Russell.
Good evening. The Village of Weston website states the municipal center total cost is $16.6 million in new taxes and new taxpayer debt. This project will increase the tax rate by an average of 86 cents per thousand of assessed value, property value, or $129 on a $150 home, or $150,000 home. The new municipal center will also add to the new net construction, which will increase the tax levy. Therefore, the taxpayer would also be paying higher taxes due to the increase in the city and county levy limit. The TID 1 bond, initiated in 1998, had a maturity due date of July 1st, 2021, which was extended another 10 years. The paperwork provided to me by the administrator showed tax increment funds financing lines of credit of in excess of 12 million guaranteed by the village, and business grants or gifts in excess of 3 million, with some of these businesses closing. If the Village of Weston is in the business of selecting business winners and losers, we as taxpayers lose. Banks are in the business of making money, not losing money. Government does not follow that business plan. Should government be the arbiter as to which businesses or developers receive grants or lines of credits with little or no oversight? The MacGyver Institute warns municipalities of the dangers of such TID financing. In my opinion, the village board needs to find a way to offset the property tax and levy increases on the new municipal center. Closing TID 1 and TID 2 seems to be a great solution, which would return 6.1 million of tax revenue back to the village's general fund. Closing TID 1 and TID 2 would provide taxpayers a savings of 98 cents per thousand of assessed value. In other words, a $150,000 home would save $147 in taxes. This 147 savings would eliminate TID 1 and TID 2. This $147 savings from eliminating TID 1 and TID 2 would minimize the new municipal center tax of $129 on a $150,000 home and the additional levy tax for the new municipal center. As a concerned taxpayer, I protest the additional $12 million for TID 2 to subsidize businesses and developers. Over the years, numerous businesses and developers have built apartments and business structures without subsidies from the Village of Weston. My question is why you are not concerned for the residents on a fixed income. Your constituents are struggling financially from the pandemic as well as rising inflation. Subsidizing businesses and developers is only increasing the village's debt and our taxes. I went through the audit of the Village of Weston for the year ended December 31st, 2020. The fund balance in District Number 1 was $3,782,000. They say you have a $15 million debt on it, and I'm wondering how much of the financing of line of credits of $12 million is still outstanding from those businesses that we guarantee payment on. Does anybody have an answer to that?
I'm not sure what you're asking specifically. Maybe Jessica could address your question, or we could.
I would like to
I'll work with you later. I don't know that.
We do lines of credit for businesses that
Lines of credit. I think you're talking about prior letters of credit development agreements that were made with some developers in TID 1, TID number 1.
Correct.
So those I'm not sure what balances are left outstanding on those. Jessica, do you know?
The only balance we have outstanding for our LLCs is the Cheryl from the lawsuit. We owe Cheryl companies yet.
Cheryl, you owe Cheryl Company how much?
Whatever is, did you look at the financial statements? I don't have them up. It specifically said that there are lines of credit open. $85,472.
Okay, so where does the 15 million in outstanding debt come from?
I don't know, you're the one they're from the CDA revenue bonds. We talked about that.
Can you speak louder?
CDA revenue bonds, we talked
Maybe you
about
want to
that.
use the mic so everybody can hear you.
Mr. Chairman, if I can call point of order, this public hearing is just on TID 2. This is not for discussion of TID 1. These are valid questions, but just.
But they relate.
That's what we're here for.
Hang on, this is TID 2.
This is TID 2.
Okay, I protest any funding that goes to TID 2 because I think TID 1 should be closed and funding tax money back to the taxpayer would be.
Comments are duly noted. Thank you.
And none of the tax revenue goes back to the general fund of the municipality. It all goes to the TID. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
You are correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Russell. If it's repeated, duly noted. If it's something new, go ahead. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jim Russell. I live at 5907 Tricia Avenue. And I'm opposed to TID 2 $8 million developer incentives. And of 50 states, Wisconsin ranks number 5 in the highest taxes. The 4 states with higher real estate taxes than Wisconsin are Connecticut, New Hampshire, Illinois, and New Jersey. That should make Wisconsin proud. Recently, I read an article in the MacIver Institute, which is a Wisconsin public policy think tank. When the time approaches for a tax increment district to close, local officials often start taking desperate steps to stop it. There's a slush fund at stake that can be used to fund almost anything they want. Weston's TID 1 opened in 1998 and was set to close in 2021, which would have been great news for taxpayers. It is currently pulling in an unbelievable $5.4 million a year in property tax revenue. By comparison, the Village of Weston's property tax collections are only expected to be $4.5 million. If the TID closed, the revenue would go into the tax levy. Because of levy limits, it would not increase government revenues. Instead, it would go directly towards property tax relief throughout the village, school district, county, and Tech College district. As far as government is concerned, it means $5.4 million less than we can spend on pet projects. Obviously, local officials are not about to let that happen. Officials had another TID problem also. State law only allows a municipality to have up to 12% of its total equalized value contained in the TID. Weston had over 21% of its TID value, and you mentioned that, Keith, tied up in the TIDs, meaning that it could not create any new ones. Weston lobbied and received a concession from the state. The TID's project plan was amended to add $23.4 million worth of property to the TID last year and extend its life to 2031. So, I mean, we've got TIDs that just don't die. What's going to happen with TID 1? How long? We'll all be dead by the time it closes. Now, where to spend the money next? Despite the fact that the village has plenty of internet options already available, they decided that the TID needs an astonishing 1,000 megabytes per second speed, and they offered to pay TDS $225,000 from the TID to install fiber optic cables. The village speculated that if the company could push satellite companies out of town, its cable franchise fees will increase by $40,000 annually. The MacIver article discusses the grant given to TDS. However, TDS is not the only business or individual receiving grants or lines of credit from the TIF. There are many more. A list of companies, individuals receiving grants or lines of credit from the community is available from the village business office. Because it is tax money, it should be readily available to all residents. In conclusion, the new Weston Municipal Center will increase the tax levy and real estate taxes to the taxpayer. Businesses in the TID 1, including the industrial park, and TID 2 will not pay a dime more in real estate taxes towards the new municipal center, which will be providing municipal services to them covered by the taxpayers. So TID 1 was set to close in 2021, which would have given taxpayers 89 cents per $1,000 of assessed value of a home. Question: why was TID 1 not closed but extended another 10 years out to 2031? And we should expect that from TID 2, I guess, also. Is it a prudent function of government to pick winners and losers in the private sector by giving grants to private businesses? grants that otherwise would go to tax relief. And then the but for, I mean, that's very arbitrary. Nobody knows but for. Would TDS have come in here and put the cable in without it? Did Cronenwetter and Wausau and the other places that got fiber optics, did they also fund TDS? It's nice. I wonder if Charter or some of the other cable companies were also funded, or do we just pick winners and losers as the government with taxpayer money? So I don't know, why was TID 1 extended another 10 years?
TID 1 was extended.
1998 to 2030.
Extended because of a devaluation of commercial property or industrial property in the state that caused the debt repayment position or debt repayment situation to go underwater essentially.
Now being dealt.
So the village asked for an extension in order to make sure that it could be solvent.
Being dealt a bad hand, so that's not the
perhaps
case. You guys are the dealers. It's your management that's handling this.
Jessica, am I correct in my high-level assumption or my high-level explanation there? I believe.
The state of Wisconsin devalued our commercial property that was in TIF 1 by $22 million in 2010 and 2011. With that, we could not sustain the debt payments. In the time, the 2 to 3 years prior to getting the approval from the state, the general fund had to give the TIF the funds to pay the debt during that time.
The taxpayer, I mean, the taxpayer had to give the TID 1.
Well, we couldn't levy for it, so it was the general fund, our little nest egg that we had. We didn't have any nest egg left, just prior to the approval from the state. But we did when we got the approval for the 10-year extension, we refinanced our CDA revenue bonds. That's why they're going out so long.
So we want to do that with TID number 2. We want
Yeah, let's be clear. Let's be clear here. We are not.
We're having a debate here right now.
I'm asking questions. I'm not having a debate.
This is take testimony on the tax increment district plan amendment.
There's not, and let's be clear, there's not a proposal before us to extend the life of TID 2, nor is there a proposal to extend TID 1. We're not permitted.
When is that gonna happen?
Which?
The proposal and go into effect. They built that building over there without any added information.
All right, my apologies for chiming in on that, but I just want to make sure we are discussing TID number 2.
Okay, I have one more person. Tom Salzer, is he here? Yeah. Tom, you live in the town of Weston. Why are you here?
Business. This is all business. I'm a business person.
You have a business in the village of Weston?
Yes.
Yeah, please step forward.
Oh, it's okay.
Sure.
I'm not a resident. I've been a part of Weston forever.
Step forward, name and address for the record, please.
Tom Salzman, 225 Lar Avenue. It's basically three things I'm speaking to oppose in the TIF, in the amendments to the TIF. Number one, if you look at, like on page 27, in the bonds and how they're gonna fund the new designs of this, there's nothing that specifically points out how those bonds are paid back. So they could bond the whole village to pay for things in the businesses that would put a burden on the taxpayers of the whole village. Number two, if you look at page 5, page 33, and page 20, it talks about moving property owners. It talks specifically about changing zoning, and it specifically talks on page 33 about using state statutes to condemn land to put businesses in place. And I'm opposed to condemning residential land to put it into businesses. It's something that I don't see that any municipality should be doing, is condemning land. Special assessments, if you look at special assessments to businesses, something I've paid many times. If you look at the going outside of the TIF district, a half mile, and then coming back into the TIF district to try to special assess that, those are talked about on, like on page 23, there's some overly broad statements in the framework of how they're gonna put this together, and even resurfacing Schofield Avenue and then special assessing all of those businesses. Schofield Avenue is a thoroughfare. It's not something that is specifically for TIF. So to special assess all the property owners is something I'm opposed to. Those are my 3 points. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. I have had several emails, and I'm going to ask permission to read those, because these people aren't here. I have one from, the first one I'm gonna read is, these I got this afternoon when I opened my email, is from Dan and Michelle Zayacek, 4812 Fuller Street, and I will read it completely. I would like to put into the record that I am opposed to the current and proposed amendment to TID 2. I oppose this current grab for cash by village officials. Given the increases in real estate taxes building for at least 5 years, the fact that you are building the Taj Mahal Municipal Building, the tax increase, real inflation is upwards 12% this year, and local officials are supposed to be frugal when spending the public's money. Please register our votes on this matter. And it's signed Dan and Michelle, last name, hopefully I didn't murder it too bad. So, and the next one I have is from Eric Limerand. I don't have his address, but he is a village of Weston resident. It's addressed to me, it says, I'm writing because I'm unable to attend the meeting tonight. I'm against amending tax increment district number 2 to include the apartment complex. I think we've given enough money to 2 businesses in our area, and my taxes have gone higher due to the new village hall. Please understand that I will not support any changes to the tax code since the village hall was presented to us in the way it was. I want to go on record stating that I'm against that, and I think the village should be not changing the district. Regards, Eric Limerman. And now I have some from previous days, and I'm sorry, I'm obligated to read these. Hopefully, some of them are fairly short. I have one from Ashley Knox, 6405 Old Costa Lane. Her letter is pretty short. It says, I am opposed. Sincerely, Ashley Knox. And this next one that I have is from Lisa Pye, 5808 Mary Lane, Weston, Wisconsin. Dear Lauren, please note that I am opposed to the TID 2 amendment. Lisa Pye.
Okay, that's me. Can I just make one comment?
Sure you can.
Okay, I'm really opposed for all, Lisa Pye, 5808 Mary Lane. And I'm really opposed to the TID number 2 for all the reasons that all these people have graciously stated. And I think you need to really look at why you still have the TID 1 open. It's not like free money. And our opinion does count. We live in this community and we should have a say in how our money is spent. Thank you.
Thank you. Next one I have from Sarah Leafblad. Is she here? At 5916 Pine Park Street, Weston. Dear Commission Chair White and Trustee President Maloney, I would like to register that I'm opposed to the proposed TID amendment. I, a concerned taxpayer, don't need to subsidize businesses along Schofield Avenue because businesses can pay for their own businesses just like I pay for my own house myself. Thank you. Sarah Leafblad. And hopefully I pronounced that name correctly.
You did.
Are you here?
Yeah, no, I know her. She's a friend of mine.
Okay. Well, the next one I have, the last one I have, unless there's been someone come in during a hearing, is from Robert Beauchesne. I don't know if that's correct. 5808 Mary Lane. It says, hi Maureen, please make known I'm opposed to the TID 2 amendment. Thank God it was short and but to the point. Thank you. Valerie, do we have any others? Okay, is there anyone else that wishes to make a comment? For or against? If you've spoken already, if you have something new to add, sure.
Just,
If you're gonna repeat,
oppose for the TID.
duly noted. Thank you.
You said you could add something?
Sure.
So, well, this is kind of like what we do in a lot of the businesses that I help run, and things it's like a sunk ship, like if you did something, but you can recover from it. And I'm not saying this as a joke, okay? So don't take it as a joke, guys. And I'm not saying it to be mean. Can we recover from what you guys are calling the Taj Mahal thing? Could you like literally say, hey, we've done all this work, cleared all this land, and now let's help bring in some businesses into that, and the money you spent on that was already helping them? I mean, I'm not saying that as a joke, but like, why not scrap that whole project and use that money to really help some businesses and give them some prime real estate right on Alderson, right off the freeway, not Alderson, but Camp Phillips, right off the freeway. I don't know if that's possible, the way governments work, but it's probably what I would do if this whole city was my business. I'd be like, scrap this, let's bring in a big box office here so that people travel here and have jobs right here, or help a local business build there or something. But anyways, it's not a joke, it just kind of came to me.
I'll let Mr. Donner respond to that.
I think the main thing to remember is we're gonna have a site just down the street here that is unsuitable for its current use. It's like, we have a shop that's unsafe for our employees, and it just needs to be updated, and we can't keep our equipment maintained properly. After we're in the new place, that site's gonna get redeveloped. So we're out to make a decision on how we're gonna market it. Will we market it simply as it is and have it sold back to some developer, or will we make it a brownfield and have it start with a clean site essentially for someone?
Okay, anything else? Hang on. We're not gonna be coming back up and down.
Oh, I thought you said you had an additional comment.
Yes, please, name and address for the record.
Cindy Russell, 5907 Tricia Avenue. The other thing to consider that with these TIF developments is that none of the money from those districts come back for fire, police, ambulance, snow plowing or anything. So as these districts increase with businesses and apartment houses or whatever, the rest of the taxpayers pick up that additional cost as well. Is that correct?
I think we mentioned that in the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, we did acknowledge that.
I might have missed that, but that's another consideration that we as a taxpayer will be picking that cost up as well with some of these districts.
Thank you.
One short comment.
Name and address for the record, please.
Jim Russell, 5907 Tricia Avenue.
Thank you.
The average TID is approximately 17 years across Wisconsin. That's the average. And we've got one going out, how many years? All the way to 2020, from 1998 to 2031.
Thank you. Commission members, any comments? Hearing none. Anything online, social media? No. No. I'll close the public hearing. Item E, discussion and action by the Plan Commission. Plan Commission members, discussion?
Nobody wants to talk. It's obvious that a lot of people are questioning the use of the funds, and I too question. I don't know if we should be specifying
the use of all of the money, whether it's incentives or whether we should be regulating, or come up with certain parameters or incentives. Well, it just seems like we move along at a snail's pace on this thing, and look back and say, well, how did that happen, or when did that happen? And I too am very concerned. The village hasn't had very much success in TIF 2, or excuse me, in TIF 1. The cost, cancel everything out, and I understand it's different administrator at the time and different board members and different planning members, but it's still the real money. And that expense that we incurred for all of that, it's still tax money, and I have a problem with that. I have concerns about this location, or I have concerns about whether this TIF will have a similar risk for concerns regarding the use of those funds, and I just think we need to be more specific. As far as repaving, I understand that, and I'm for that, but I'm not in favor of subsidizing apartment buildings in this area with no clue of how that money's being used. And I'm on the planning commission, I'm also a trustee, just like Lauren is, just to clarify that. And that's where my concerns are. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything. Don't have to. Jordan?
Well, my name is Joe Jordan. I'm past president of Weston Supply. I've been active in Weston for a long time. And we have added a significant amount of employment to the area. And we had the opportunity to use some of the funds from the village. It chose not to. But one thing that the village did do for us is they provided us with a place to build that was exceedingly inexpensive compared to any other options that we had. And that was the impetus or the motivation that we needed to come to Weston. And any of you that know anything about Weston Supply would recognize that. So having said that, I'm interested in helping businesses that show the potential. The problem that I have is putting all of these potential things into this is, it doesn't feel right to me. And so I'm still struggling with the idea of adding the water treatment as one of the projects in this, and the idea that just because we have the opportunity to spend the money, we should do that. I'm really struggling with that. And on the other hand, like I say, if it was actually used for business development, it would make a lot more sense to me.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Marshall?
I guess I, like many of the people who spoke today, look at the return on investment, and with the TID district, you gotta wait 25, 31, many years, and I doubt that anybody who's in business here would make a investment and wait 25 years before they saw $1 of return. And so, based on what we've heard, I just can't, again, we also asked for the projects. I believe that Gary, your motion in the last meeting was to include only the repaving of Schofield Avenue in the proposal for the public hearing, and not projects 2 through 13.
Mr. Scott?
Gary, I'm also a trustee, I'm also an alternate for the planning commission. Just a couple of comments about the new municipal center. Its existing building is 75 years old. Doesn't meet any of the requirement today. With the new technology, with the Wi-Fi, computer system, that building is not designed for that. That building was designed 75 years ago. I went to that building for fingerprint when I moved to this community 50 years ago. And I said I should meet the chief of police because his office was there. I went to his office and I said that I need to do the fingerprint for my citizenship. He said, okay, we can do that. He reached under his desk, he brought the fingerprint stuff out, and he said, let's go. He brought me to the hallway, put the fingerprint stuff on the sill, window sill, and he fingerprinted. What I'm getting at, that building was designed small the first day. It wasn't designed for that many people to work in. The garage, just give me 1 minute. The garage is unsafe to work in there. If you look at their crane, it's not rated. And they can use that. They're using it to make it work. When they park the vehicle in there, there is no room in there to move around. So I think it was needful. As for the location, that property was sitting there for years, nobody was buying it. For years, because I know that property very well. I live in this community for 50 years, and I understand all the changes I have seen. As for our water system goes, it worked good, but the water quality is not there. We have high manganese and high iron in our water. It affects our water heater and in fact our water system in our houses. It affects the businesses. I do have a property on the Schofield Avenue, and I have a restaurant on Basil. They changed the water heater, 3 of them, with no time, just because it was deteriorated. So there is some stuff has to be done. Yeah, the water is not good, and I can tell you that much because I understand this stuff. I work with them. And we have to improve. Thank you. Yes.
Why did we spend so much money putting the area in the old building? We knew you were gonna get rid of it. They went down about 2 feet to put all new ground and everything around that place. You got a great parking lot. That's it.
No, he need the answer first. Okay. Keep that answer.
The parking lot reconstruction was done well before there was any thought of even replacing it.
But why did they have one? What was the reason to put that much into that parking lot?
So it's stand up to the traffic that it gets, so we don't have to
I don't
repave
think
it every
we
5
did
years.
rid of the police station and the fire department area, are you?
Oh, no.
Maintaining that building.
He's talking about switch.
I don't know which,
I think people
Oh,
realize
okay, I'm
that the
sorry.
municipal center was old, okay? The problem there was no discussion, there was no vote, because you knew that you were against it, because you have, it's a Taj Mahal. We understand about, like, the buildings need to be replaced for, all the equipment, we totally get that. But that building, I mean, it's probably gonna cost $20 million, right? The original estimate was 15, now it's almost 17.
Plus interest.
The plan commission has no say over the municipal center building.
I do not.
Plan commission is, that's a board, so if you'd like to talk about that, you should get on the board agenda.
But that's why we're upset about this, about everything being discussed tonight, because we don't get a say. It just gets passed, everything gets passed.
I'll say that nobody wants to hear is.
By the way, this is the time for the plan commission to discuss, not to debate, just a clarification.
I'm not debating anything, I'm saying, state the facts. My facts are that I think our residents don't trust, our residents don't trust what our officials have done because of a building that got rammed through. So now everything else is being scrutinized. That's just my opinion.
And I agree.
So can everyone hear me? I hope so. So, my name is Lauren White, trustee Village of Weston. I've been a trustee or president of the village for 15 years, police officer for 30, I moved here in 1975, built my home. So I've been a long-term resident here. I have a lot of my life invested here. This plan is a plan. And as far as I understand, TID and TIF, that if you want to have a possibility, even remotely possibility of using funding from a TIF to do a project, it has to be in your plan. In the plan, if you read through it, in the comments that were made by Mr. Rolfers, all these projects planned doesn't mean they're gonna go through. They still have to be approved by the village board. If those plans aren't mentioned in the plan amendment, we can't do them. We can't finance it either without this. If we wanted to give incentives, and let's face it, developers, some of our business people know that the first things that developers come to a community, what are you gonna give me? What are you gonna give me? We hear that all the time. So my comment is, it's a plan. If we don't have it in the plan, we can't do it. And that's it. Any other comments from plan commission members? Yeah.
We're talking about TID 2, and more one in this one. And when you're asking people outside of TID to shoulder a burden, again, Weston, I believe the latest was 23% of our equalized value is in a TID district. That means the rest of the residents are picking up police, fire. And now you said, you know, you don't have to police streets, but the businesses along Schofield Avenue have shoplifting, all other types of police services. So I think it is relevant that we look at, are we willing to say people outside of the TID need to subsidize people in the TID? That is the question before us right now. Are we willing to ask these people outside of the TID to subsidize people inside of the TID? I make a motion that the proposal is denied based on the overwhelming public input we have received.
Is that your motion?
Yes, it is.
Okay, is there a second? I'll second that. We have a motion by Marshall, a second by Nell.
As presented.
To deny, as I recall. Is that what you said, Peter?
Chairman, it should be recommended. The motion should be recommended to the board. Or we can deny it.
That's correct. This plan commission is
And deny
responsible
it.
for holding, if you don't want it to go forward to the, you would recommend the denial to the board.
I do, yes.
Is that your motion, Gail?
Yes.
Okay, is that your second?
Yes, that is my second.
On the question,
I think, if I can just make a statement, I think that if the resurfacing, I understand doing that, but I have problems regarding these other items, just listing them and then saying, well, if we don't use it for that, we can use it for incentives on someplace else. We haven't been very good about incentives, in my opinion, at the village. Even the ones in TIP 1 that have been brought in since I was placed on as a trustee on the board, it didn't get handled very smoothly. And I'm just saying that we don't have a very good track record, and that's why I'm not in favor of just having a blind assumption correctly going forward. This is tax money, and I feel obligated to look at it very closely. And I just don't agree with these uses that are put down here.
thank you. Anything else on the question?
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
Sure.
I guess, again, emphasize, I think to your point that you were making before, it's a plan. We have to list the projects that could be eligible. It's not saying that any one of these projects is approved at all. They have to come before the board. As far as addressing the issue of whether the project meets the but-for test, that becomes a question on each project that comes through. And if we need to do it, we talked about using a different process, a more thorough process, if you will, because we're gonna have to get away from pay-go agreements based on the length of the life of these two TIDs. And those become impractical, so we have to look more at some combination of grants and some kind of milestones that may be hit by the developers. And to say that that should be in this plan at the front, I suppose we could come up with some general guidelines if you want to reconsider that, but I do think that's something that would be addressed individually with each project as they come forward.
Yeah. Anything else on the question? I'm gonna ask for a roll call vote on this.
Before the roll call, is everyone clear what they're voting on? Is it to stop this?
Yeah,
Is it
we're
to
not really
delay
clear.
it? I want to make sure that you guys, because I've heard it said a few different times, just, is there real clarity on what you guys are actually voting?
They're not, the motion was to not recommend this plan to go forward.
Right.
Yeah, I believe you would be moving to reject the TID 2 plan amendment by not approving resolution 2021 PC 007.
Yes.
And we'll evaluate after tonight whether that means it's dead or not. It's atypical for a plan commission to take this action. So we'll be able to answer the question as to whether that kills the TID project plan amendment or not.
Is that clear?
No, it's not. So you're gonna vote whether or not you're going to kill it, but then you're gonna decide later when we're not around whether you're really gonna kill it.
No, the worst case scenario is that this would go to the village board for another public meeting, which all of you could attend, and it would go to another meeting of a joint review board. So what I'm suggesting here tonight is that if the plan commission voted not to approve this resolution, is that I don't wanna stand here and say it's 100% dead with that action.
So what makes it 100% dead?
The village board, the trustees have to vote.
Trustees vote? Okay, thank you.
Any other clarification? Plan commission?
Since we have you guys here, how did that, village hall get snuck through on everybody?
No, let's stay with this vote here. And voting in favor is denial.
Correct.
And voting not in favor.
If voting opposed to the motion, it means you want the plan to go forward.
Okay, so in favor is in favor of Gail's motion and Steve's second.
Correct.
Correct. I want to make sure everybody's clear on that.
Roll call vote, Ellen.
All right. White,
No.
and Lionel,
So my vote is to approve her motion.
Approve.
Yes. If you're voting yes.
and is not, Ernst,
Yes.
yes, turn it down. Jordan,
Aye.
yes. Marshall,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
and Zagami.
No.
So it's 2 noes and 5 yeses.
So the motion is approved. Okay.
We'll be coming back.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, unless you want to listen and sit in on the rest of the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keith, hey Keith, Mr. Chairman. I just think maybe you should give some indication to the public here on how it could get to the village board. How would it be proposed to the village board to skirt around this? How would that happen?
Say that again, how would it happen?
Yep.
Anything, I think we need to
I just wanna, I want these people to understand what kind of options would happen for this, but now in denied, not to move to the board. How could it, what kind of options could get to the board? I just want it said right here now.
That's a Mark question.
I need to
Look at it.
talk either with our financial consultant or perhaps our attorney on that.
And who would push that? Would it be a board member? Would it be staff? Who would push that? I just wanna know.
I guess we have the result of the action from the plan commission. We'll just have to find out what that means.
Okay.
I believe it means it's dead.
I just thought there was some unanswered questions and I thought that might be prudent to.
Can Marty explain?
Okay, so I have a question there. So even though they said they do not approve of this TID, we may not have a public hearing again and it still could be approved by board. Is that what you're saying?
Question. I don't understand that.
I'm not sure we know the answer to that.
Okay,
Because this was
How will
unanticipated.
we get the answer? And when will we get the
Well,
answer?
we have all of your contact information, correct? Everybody gave that when they gave testimony?
Uh-huh.
Okay, we can follow up once we have the definitive answer on that.
Well,
I believe it's dead.
Mark, do you have any indication or any thoughts on this?
I believe it's dead, but I don't want to offer a legal opinion because I'm not an attorney.
I don't charge enough for that.
I just want to make sure that whatever the answer is, it's going to be public and we're going to know.
You
And
can't,
it's not going to be hard to find out.
we've made a,
He didn't notice it.
Plan Commission has taken an action tonight. If there was gonna be an attempt or a desire or even an option to be able to go forward, it would have to go through a public hearing process again.
Right.
Could not just,
Another plan, yeah.
Keith, can you just acknowledge that they're gonna get a letter from the village if this goes to the next step? I mean,
if I need to restate that, yes.
okay, I'm just trying to clarify.
Or Plan Chairman Lauren White, or myself, or Keith Donner.
I don't know who you are.
I am Mark Maloney.
Oh.
I am the village president. Yep, it's okay.
Name a lot, never seen your
Yeah.
face.
I was at an event today, that's why I'm in shorts, otherwise I wouldn't be. Sorry.
Okay, so can we move on with the meeting?
Get off the golf course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You should wear long pants.
I know.
Okay, communications, public comments, legally advised for state 1942. Rent to people that were here. Pardon me, I think you're gonna wait until all the cases done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Continuing, information will be received from the public. It is the policy of the village that there be a 5-minute time period, which we extended, per person with time except for the plan commission chair's discretion. We further advise that there may be limited discussion on the information received. However, no action will be taken under public comment. Written communications received, anything valid.
No.
Okay, thank you. Anything on social media? No. Okay. New business, item 10, project number 20210324. Finishing touch signs requesting a special exemption to allow larger directional signs within the LI, Limited Industrial Zoning District at 8608 Progress Way, PIN number 192-2808-234-0985.
Finishing Touch Science has submitted 2 directional sign spec sheets along with a permit for the Commudocs new site on Progress Way. The signs are proposed at being 18 square feet each. Directional signage in the village is maxed out at 9 square feet. We do have the special exception portion of the code, which does allow Plan Commission to review and make the approval on this if they deem it acceptable. So that is what this item is. So instead of 9 square feet, they're looking for 18 based on location, snow plowing, ensuring that, seen visually, as well as to match, it goes all the way down to the ground. We did discussions of making it more like a pole sign, matching the existing or the future sign that'll be out by 29. And staff recommends approval.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Motion by Reynolds, second by Garrett, is it correct? To approve, on the question, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? So carried. Item 11, project number 20210339. Noah Phillips requesting a special exception to allow a larger wall sign within the B2 Highway Business Zoning District at 12 Business Highway 51. PIN number 192 2808 3344 0993. Staff.
All right, so we've received another permit for a wall sign exceeding the permitted maximum square area for a new business at 5612 Business Highway 51. That's the old gun and pawn shop. It's getting renovated at the moment. They're proposing a sign that is approximately 49 by 0.5 square feet. The zoning district in the B2 zoning district permits a maximum wall sign area of 1 square foot for every linear foot of wall length. So the wall is 30 feet long, the maximum would be 30 square feet. So they're requesting a larger sign up to 49.5 square feet on the wall there. And just as clarification, the sign does wrap. So this is only for the front portion of the sign. The triangle meets on its own side. And that's fine. So it's just the avenue title portion is the 49.5 square feet. And staff again is in favor of approval.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Garrett, second. Did I see a second from you, Joe? Second from Jordan. On the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? So carried. Mr. Garrett, I would suggest you repeat yourself. Records show that Mr. Garrett has recused himself and is sitting in the audience. Item next, project 2020019 amendment to site plan, PGA excavation facility at 7315 Zinsser Street. Staff.
All right, we have received updated site plans for the PGA excavation facility on Zinsser Street. I laid out, a couple of the changes in the staff report there, so I can go through those. Fencing, in the initial approvals, apologies, lost my train of thought there. In the initial approvals, the entire yard was going to be fenced, however, with everything going on, supply chain and whatnot, the supply is just very limited, very high price. So just the request to put the fencing in at a later time when it is more cost effective and the supply is more available. Gravel yard, so kind of goes with the fencing. The Planning Commission had recently updated part of the code that gravel could go right up to the lot line, disregarding the 6-foot hard surface setback. So just a comment that any gravel would need to maintain that 6-foot setback until the fencing has been put in. There's been a change to the building elevations, adding an overhead door to the east side of the building, along with a person door. So because there's this change to the original approval, and since the Plan Commission was the original plan approval authority, because there was some funding given, Plan Commission just needs to approve the change of building elevations. There's now also a new asphalt drive that goes with that new overhead door. And landscaping plan has been submitted, asking for a reduction in points because of constraints on the site, a reduction in street trees, hard surface, and general yard plantings. Again, Plan Commission would just need to approve that as they're the site plan approval authority. So just looking for approval of the amendment, condition of gravel and asphalt services meeting setbacks until additional fence is installed, or there's been discussion of potential future purchase of surrounding property, which could expand the property, thus negating setback issues. So any questions, comments? We do have MTS.
Is there any safety concerns with regards to the changes?
I did not see any, I don't believe staff saw any changes, or I'm sorry, security issues, safety issues.
Sir, is there something we can do? What do you need?
Up to this point, talk on the project.
Okay.
He's
any
not
questions?
yet.
That's Nick.
Do you want me to have the microphone or not?
Please, but just like that.
Okay, I can talk.
I got it over here. There you go.
Sorry, you were voting quickly, so I thought I should talk before you vote. Nick Bancek with Marathon Technical Services, we're the engineer for the project. Just a quick point of clarification and update. They are looking not to put the fence up at this time or at a later time, only around the dumpster location, to enclose a dumpster. They are not going to be storing, they will be moving their pipe materials, their extra stuff. It'll just be vehicles and equipment. They're purchasing other property, restoring materials. So it won't be at the site anymore.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just a question, yes. So what kind of fence they putting around waste material?
We had just shown a 6-foot high privacy fence. It was gonna be a chain link fence with
Chain link fence.
a privacy slats.
So you're gonna put those screen in there?
Yeah, the slats.
Okay. Okay. Although they don't last long, but.
It's the pre-woven and it's expensive stuff, Boucher.
Well, they put them at the
No, it's not that.
Village Road and Zion at the corner of the Birch Street.
It's
That
not the
didn't
same
last
stuff.
long.
This stuff is woven in as they build the fence. It's the same stuff we have in our yard right now. It's not the stuff that you can slide down through.
Yep.
That stuff's not,
But that's why I said those are ones that.
yeah, not.
Any other questions? Thank you.
I'll just bounce back off of the comments of the fencing, I'll still keep in the comments that any gravel or asphalt would need to just maintain setbacks until property.
That's part of your suggested.
Yep.
Motion.
Just based off that change, that should still stand.
Okay. Further discussion? Looking for a motion?
Make a motion to approve the amended site plan as presented.
Second.
Motion by Moore, second by Jordan on the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? So carried. Staff reports, item 13, acknowledge report with August 2021 staff approved certified survey and site plan. Do I have to say anything? Yes. Mr. Garrett is back. So you can take these individually, or you can take them all as a group. A motion to acknowledge.
I'd make a motion to approve 13 and 14 of the acknowledgement, those two reports.
Okay, we have a motion to acknowledge 13 and 14.
Second.
Second by Mumford on the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So carried. Item 15.
No, I'm questioning that one because it was dated from 2019 or something that
We have
was,
to show back.
pardon me?
So the way that the state law goes, we have to show back. So it's previous years, so we have to show the last. They're not current, they're the old ones, they have to be placed on basically our website. So it's from that state law.
So do we have one for this year or from last year, or is it the actual report? Is it cumulative or what, or?
You're reporting for each year, so we can't report 20. So they're always a year behind, essentially.
Shouldn't we have? What I was getting at is I think there are two people that were on, their email addresses on it there that I was just questioning, don't work here anymore. In, I think, in the planning portion of it. Maybe not, maybe, I'm just saying that there was some attachment that had.
The housing report, oh, that's the schedule of fees you're seeing.
Pardon me?
That's the schedule of fees. The schedule of fees hasn't changed since 2019.
It's August 2019.
I grabbed 19 and
Right.
19 version for 19, so that's why there's,
That's who was on it.
he's still on that one.
Move to approve the housing fee schedules for 2020 and 2021.
Acknowledge. And a motion by Marshall, second by Joe. Acknowledge the housing report. On the question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So carried. Miscellaneous. 16, project updates. This yours, Jen?
Yeah, so these are just things that are still hanging out there. So we will be back with signs next month. We did talk to Attorney Edie. He is putting some things together. This was actually the topic of discussion at his, at the League of Municipalities Attorney Institute. So they had a whole discussion on signs and different options and different ways to meet that. Did mention that one community that talked there, Manitowoc, took them over a year to get their sign ordinance to where it is now. So he will be back next month with some options for that. So we'll be needing a posting. We are still working on chapter 14 building. We also have the park impact needs assessment to come back to you. If you remember back when previous President Sparks was here, it was brought forward and the Plan Commission at the time had wanted us to look at, revise the scope of that project and look at breaking the fee into two different fees for the parkland dedication fees. So we will be bringing that back. I just want you to be aware that I'll be taking to the board next week, participating in a metro-wide housing study with a number of the other communities in the area. The RPC is looking at a regional housing study that Marathon County is actually going to be funding. And so that will feed into our previous study and basically the talk on affordable housing. That's basically what the whole study will be about, because you ask any person, affordable is different to them. So it'll just basically look at the entire area, at what kind of housing stock that we have, what we should be looking for. So just so that you're aware, I'm not sure exactly, I'm guessing we'll have to approve the plan when it's complete. So we'll be bringing that to you. But I just wanted you to know that that was going on, and Keith and I have been sitting in on those meetings with the other communities. And then also we'll be looking at doing a comprehensive plan update starting next year. Sean needs to do his comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, which is the core required to be updated every 5 years. And just with the change of everything in the community, and then the corridor plans that we had completed, we need to just relook at pieces of the comprehensive plan that we have now. So looking at land use, the housing element, maybe even transportation. So just kind of revisiting the plan, because you should have it in 5 years. But there might be areas that we need to update. There potentially will be a discussion about extension of sewer and water too, and where those should be in the town, so.
Thank you. Any questions for Jen? Okay, item 17, next meeting date is Monday, October 11th, 2021, 6 p.m. 18 remarks from staff. Mr. Dunn.
If I may follow up with a comment, as we were being asked what the implications of tonight's action on the TID 2 plan was. We overlooked that there was a proposal to remove some area from TID 2. The action doesn't close TID 2. It actually hasn't, that decision would still need to be made. And the proposal to remove that territory does have some implication on a current development being considered. So the boundary amendment should would need to move forward, I believe. But that would need to be brought back by a motion of someone.
Can that be parsed out?
That would be, I guess if we'd have stepped back, maybe we should have not taken action tonight and decided what changes we wanted to make. And then we could have addressed that then in a more maybe normal fashion, but the action can be brought back, I believe, to reconsider some parts of that proposed plan. But again, the boundary changes would be critical of the current development that's being considered right now.
In the east or west end?
On the east.
East, okay.
I have a question on that. What if those properties don't get amended? Can the TIF district actually move forward without moving properties?
I mean, basically, the current TIF plan would stand. And really, it's limited to what we can do.
I'm asking, without omitting those properties, can you actually do an extension, or do you have to petition the state for it?
We're not extending.
We're not extending it.
It's still staying until, right now, it's still staying open until it
So
would
it's
close,
just,
but
it's just there until it closes.
I don't know how
What
long.
I'm getting, okay, so what I'm asking, would you be able to do an amendment to it without those two properties being removed?
The amendment would be the boundary change.
Okay,
We can't change the boundaries without doing the amendment.
okay, so I understand.
The amendment would-
You're doing the amendment, but also you're asking to.
You would eliminate those projects that were stated as being future goals. That's what your directive, I take it, would have been on amending the plan. And all the plan would have done, the project plan amendment would have done is amend the boundary.
And we're gonna scale it back to boundary changes only. Is that what you're saying? Boundary changes only is what you would bring forward?
That's what could have been brought forward, I guess.
That would have
It
to.
still could be.
I'm assuming that's gonna take someone who voted it down, bringing it back, because that's usually how actions work. We're gonna have to look into all of this, but that's essentially, like, even in a case of a denial, it has to be someone that brings it back. That denied it.
So we need to
It would be a motion to rescind the action, and then you would have to reinstate with just those changes. And someone to rescind, it has to be someone that voted on the prevailing side.
I would support that.
Yes, I would.
I would also.
I think that's something that we need to talk about when it's on the agenda. This is off topic.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to point it out since it was on tonight's agenda, so. We're not saying that it's dead, I mean.
It's too bad that wasn't brought up earlier.
To be honest with you, Gary, I don't think that would have made any difference.
Well, I believe it would have.
Are they asking him? Sorry.
Lauren just said, to be honest with you, I don't believe that would have made a difference, and I said, I believe it would have. On how it was voted, and whatever. I believe it would have been. Because I know you got three people right here.
You would have just carved out the boundaries?
Yes.
Okay, just the boundary, okay.
I think we would have had unanimous up here if it was about it. I'm stepping out of bounds by saying it, but I think we lost a lot of trust from our citizens.
Tonight or in the past?
In the past, from what got. That's my opinion. And no matter if it needed to happen or not.
I really don't think we pushed that building through. We met, I don't know how many times we met.
Never in public, never in public, never in public, never had public there, ever. We wouldn't have had a building committee if I went to ask for a building committee. That's not true. Not true. We talked about it for 10 years, but never included the public. But it started in 16.
Yeah, but how many meetings?
Well, it's passed. It's
done. Yeah, I just believe we have a lack of people trusting the government suggested. That's my opinion. I mean, it's very evident tonight. They don't trust anyone.
So 60 property owners didn't.
Keith, are you gonna be able to talk with him about bringing back just that amendment? with our attorney, is what I'm asking, or, I mean, I'm just saying that.
We're gonna have to, we're gonna have to look into it.
Right.
Because it may need to be reheard, I don't know.
Right.
This is something that we have to look into. Mark
So
said he would have to
is it-
look at it.
Is it reasonable to think that by our next meeting, you'll be able to?
I don't know, because if I have to go through and
Let's just,
do all
we'll
the
find out,
statutory.
we'll find out what needs to happen. It's already been proposed with the boundary amendment and the projects. If it's a matter of just taking action on adopting the plan without approving the project plan.
But you still have to revise the plan.
So
I mean, there's a plan document there. You can't just throw a map out and say this is what it's gonna be. So we need to look at that.
I think even if they had made that motion, it would have, I guess, triggered amending the whole language of the plan anyway, but we'll find out what needs to happen.
Well, we didn't finish our meeting tonight. Can't somebody say something about it on your? No.
Beyond that.
Anything else from staff? Remarks from commission members? Mrs. Conley? Mrs. Marshall? Here? Mr. Jordan?
I'm with Gary in that, there is definitely a lack of public trust right now from a lot of people that I've talked to too, because of what happened with the building, and I'm the first guy to tell you that we needed to do something for sure. But communication probably is where we suffered, you know, and as far as making it understood why we needed, you know, and whether it was 16 million or whatever. The idea that it went through the whole process without any public hearing and not a referendum, that sort of thing. It's just got a lot of people distrustful of the local government.
Mr. O'Connor? Someone else? I have nothing. Seeing as how we completed everything on the agenda, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.